Coming up next. Stay tuned to learn more about the state of the art in blockchain and cryptocurrency technology. Reimagine 2020. Hello and welcome back to another university segment, Reimagine 2020. My name is Tyler Olsson. I'm the University Program Director at MouseBelt. And today we have a couple of panelists that are going to help us think through the state of traditional education and how the implementation of blockchain technology can radically change that structure. Some of the questions that I want us to think through is how do we actually determine a curriculum? Because at a lot of these institutions, what we found is there isn't much there. They don't have any courses that are being offered to students who have a deep interest in cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology and all of its different aspects. So we want to think about how we can actually come to determine what the curriculum looks like. And I want to hear some testimonial on their experiences. You know, what have some of the hurdles been trying to navigate, on the one hand, being a traditional student, but then on the other hand, being somebody who has an interest in learning more about blockchain technology, but your traditional institution lacks the resources. And then finally, I'm hoping that we can think a little bit about what the state of education is going to look like in the future with the implementation of blockchain technology, whether that be just on the curriculum or actually integrating it into the systems that the universities can actually utilize. So without further ado, you guys want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, for sure, Tyler. Thanks for introducing the panel. My name is Gilberto Guadiana, and I'm a sophomore at Northwestern University studying mechanical engineering.
Hi, I'm Jack Gilchrist. I am a junior computer science student at Miami University, where I serve as the president of MU Blockchain. I am also the co-founder and chief technical officer of a blockchain consultancy I started called Blocks Consulting.
Hey, I'm Lazar Kuzmanov. I'm a business, economics, and finance major from Illinois University, Carbondale. I was founder and president of our blockchain economics club at the university, and currently I work in the digital marketing field as an IT technician.
Thanks, guys, and thanks for taking some time out of your day to hop on yet another call with us and to sort of speak on the panel. So backing up just a little bit, before I was mentioning that what we at MouseBelt have found, and this in large part drives the sort of initiatives that we've taken to give support to students who are interested in blockchain and cryptocurrency technologies. What we have found and what has driven that initiative is that there's a big lack of education at our traditional higher educational institutions. There aren't a lot of classes that people can take on blockchain and cryptocurrency technology. There's sure as hell not anything like a major except for at a few select schools. Now, to be fair, that is growing, but it seems like this space just grows so much faster than what, you know, the academy is able to keep up with. So the point there is that there's a lack, right? That means that we need to build out a curriculum, you know, an entire program that will sort of interpolate people into this space such that they achieve a level where they can become successful Yeah. So my question then is, what does that curriculum look like? And maybe one way that we can start to answer that question is by identifying all of the different aspects that constitute this space, right? What, in your view, in your experience of being involved in this space, what are the important branches, right? What are all of the different sort of constitutive pieces that make up this space? What would go on the curriculum?
I guess if no one else will start, I'll go. So I guess I'll preface it by really quickly saying at Miami University, we did have a class which I took, learned a ton at. I think one other semester, students got to take it, and then they ended up canceling it for a myriad of reasons. Not the least of which was the fact that they didn't want that class taking away from other classes. So I think there's a lot of, at certain schools at the very least, a lot of bureaucratic issues that come along with all of this. But one thing that Miami University has been really working towards at its own pace is getting a cybersecurity initiative up, and this is an interdisciplinary push by the business school we have, which is the main school, main attraction, I guess, academically at our school. And then there's the computer science and software engineering part of it. And then finally, there's the political science school as well, which is contributing a lot as well. And I don't want to take too much from everyone else, so I think I'll sum it up as in business, there's a ton of reliance on information technology, and the C-suite is increasingly seeing the appearance of chief information security officers. So it's super important on that front to be explaining where blockchain can help them. Obviously, when we're dealing with IT infrastructure or developing applications as developers and making the back-end infrastructure that goes along with developer operations, or even the more cybersecurity focused things. There's obviously a ton of applications for distributed ledger there. And then finally, as data breaches become more common and as we're just dealing with regulating the use of PII, it's becoming more and more important for political science students and political science professionals to understand where blockchain can impact them.
Jack, it's great to hear that there's a lot of interdisciplinary focus in the cybersecurity at Miami, so that's great to hear. One thing that I wanted to add on was, the different branches you mentioned are good, but there's also the key part about usability. So I think there's a lot of design focus and a lot of psychological principles that need to go on for blockchain technologies distributed ledgers to be adopted for public use. At my school, personally, we're still lagging behind on that interdisciplinary nature of blockchain. We currently, to my knowledge, do not have any type of center that would do research on for blockchain. We do have one standalone class in the electrical engineering department, but that's about it. And I think it's not too accessible for students, and it's more gives more of a theoretical background as opposed to being more practical. For one thing, I did notice that the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern did offer a seminar that kind of introduced what's going on in blockchain today, but it was mostly discussion based as opposed to how to actually implement these technologies. So I think we need to see probably some more research centers that are being developed at these schools where there's interdisciplinary focus between different departments.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with Gilberto there. We need to be as inclusive as possible when going about making organizations like this. At my university, what sort of sparked my interest in it was a financial economics course that I took by Dr. Scott Gilbert, who later ended up becoming our faculty advisor. At the very end of it, he had a unit on blockchain and crypto assets. And by the end of the course, we became pretty close, and he let me teach that portion of the course. So that's what initially sparked my interest in creating the club. And I think one key aspect to make sure to include is sort of the tangibility aspect of the blockchain, because you could go on for days about, the theories and science behind it, but it's different when a student actually has a tangible asset, that they could use to sort of further their education in that sphere. And that's why I went ahead and I created the Saluki coin on the Raven coin infrastructure as a sort of academic asset and a means to engage my students further. So that's just a little something from my end.
What do we think the holdup is? Why do we think that these, major academic institutions are so slow to sort of really bring it on, despite the efforts of some, but sort of at a to like a larger degree? What do we think the holdup is? Like, is it just lack of awareness, or sort of people still generally just skeptical? I mean, what are the hurdles?
I will say, first off, again, there's the prospect of having this compete with other classes that we're running into locally at our university, which is a bit infuriating. It has nothing to do with lack of understanding of the technology. It really only has to do with a lack of resources. And I think we're, in a pretty special time right now where there's a little bit of continuous decrease in the resources that we all, as students trying to run our clubs, have access to from our universities. They are dealing with their own kind of crises right now as they figure out what they're going to be doing with online school and all that. So implementing a course load on a quote unquote, at the very least, fringe technology is not very high on their priority list. I think on top of it, another thing that we've run into is dealing with cryptocurrency is pretty scary for some institutions, especially ones that are dealing with tax funds. Like our public university has a ton of overhead, and in some cases, a lot of the time, it's just easier to throw your hands up and say, screw it, we're not touching this. It's cheaper just to forego all of it. And while they may be missing out on some real long-term rewards, the short-term benefits are there at the very least. They are skipping out on a lot of the legal infrastructure they'd have to set up in order to be in compliance with all of that. So from our end, those are two really big issues we run into.
I would agree with Jack. There's a lot of sort of bureaucracy that goes on in the back, and especially with the crisis that we're dealing with at the moment, there's also that fear and uncertainty that, both students and the university are experiencing. And one important thing to note is that in North America, the atmosphere for blockchain is not like it is, for example, in Southeast Asia. If you talk to someone in Southeast Asia about Bitcoin, they're at least going to understand, the fundamentals of it. But in America, it's way different. You have to sort of nitpick individuals, and then those individuals spark up that interest, and then, build up that knowledge. But what I've noticed is that it's a very small amount of individuals. But once they get that fire going, they continuously show up to meetings and become members, and it's just great to see that transformation. But in terms of obstacles, I would say definitely university interests, and overall, I would say difficulty in sort of creating, like I said, that legal framework and sort of just an overall framework for what the standard is, because there really is none right now, and we're sort of all just going around and doing our own thing. So if we have those two things, the legal framework and the actual framework of the educational program in place, I think we'd be at a very good place.
So Zara, I definitely agree with the general knowledge of the US population not being too familiar with blockchain. It's definitely a buzz term that gets lumped in with things like AI and machine learning. And so it's been difficult for universities to really identify a proven track record that this distributed ledger technology is actually going to stick around. So it's kind of a work in progress. I think one key obstacle is another key obstacle is it's being lumped into the software development roles, and so being really limited to only CS focuses, which is something I've noticed at my institution. I think that by there being a lack of research at the university level that promotes the interdisciplinary nature of blockchain, it's very difficult for universities to understand that it goes outside of more than just software development. Because to be frank, I'm pretty sure about 99% of software development roles does not include working on a blockchain, which is fair. And so I think another key obstacle is that universities haven't really noticed that employers are valuing having blockchain related skills. It's not until the last couple of years that I've noticed more job postings that have been increasing dramatically. And now that universities are starting to see that there's that increased demand by employers, I think that's really going to give universities a push to want to invest and create these courses.
Yeah, and not to mention there might be some sort of conflicts of interest or something, because what I have in mind is maybe somebody that's right, private donors to the institution. It may not be in their best interest to have something like the blockchain industry or for cryptocurrencies and general to flourish, right? It might sort of be competing with their own interests. And it's, that's only up for speculation, because it's tough to say exactly where all the money comes from in every case, but who knows? Jack, you had mentioned before that one of the big issues is just the lack of resources, because for example, you might have a proposed blockchain or some sort of cryptocurrency fintech related course competing with something that's already in place. And so there's a lack of maybe not in every case it's a lack of resources as far as like knowing what the tech is and how to teach it, but maybe you just don't have the sort of man and woman power because you can't give up a class that person is already taking over, etc. Maybe you don't even have any incentive because there's not enough student body that would actually sign up for these courses. So there's a lack of resources there. But I wonder if actually integrating blockchain technology into their systems would improve things, make it more efficient. Here's a quick example for you just to like jog some thoughts. What if in the future, right, there becomes a university of the internet where we sort of like on top of these sort of interoperable or sort of interconnected or one super scalable blockchain, right? We have all of the sort of educational resources that people all around the world have to offer, sort of living on that kind of blockchain. And so it's this open, permissionless educational platform, which can be powered, and your transactions and whatnot can be automated through smart contracts. All the stuff going on behind the scenes can be taking place. But like the basic premise would be you have a university of the internet, and it would be powered by these little microtransactions that take place between people that are participating in the network, coming and going as they please, right? So then maybe you could have like have a sort of global interconnected university system, you know, where all the different universities start to sort of work with each other, and then they can contract out people who are already working as professionals in the industry, like MouseBelt, for example, or Emergo, right? These people that are striving to sort of do more by way of building out more cohesive and pointed educational resources for the larger community. You could just have an interconnected web of universities that could contract people like that. And all of a sudden you have your records on public, right? You have a lot of AI integration even that would sort of help you sort of handle the sort of complexity of a large system like that with a lot of moving pieces. You would be able to recruit people in an open source way to sort of help you out, you know? So yeah, like a sort of university of the internet. This is kind of what I'm thinking. Now, do you have any thoughts on that? How would blockchain technology actually sort of reinvent and help us sort of rethink the way that our educational institutions are structured?
Yeah, that's definitely a really interesting concept, especially given that blockchain at its core is pretty much a DRM platform. You can do some kind of cool things where you can track whether a student has actually completed these different sessions or classes, certifications, and instantly verify it afterwards. To me, the most immediately innovative or disruptive application would be that last part, though, the part where you can verify the records themselves. And this is something we've explored a little bit at our school already. There are a ton of advisory roles that go into managing all the student records and serving those to employers when they call the school up to verify whether or not a student completed their degree at, say, Miami University. And then on top of that, a lot of these records can be paper, and actually accessing them also takes manpower. In general, just managing these records once they're made is incredibly costly. And I think that by trying to kind of completely remove that administrative system and replace it with an automated blockchain-based record-keeping system would free up a lot of resources that, as we talked about, could go to maybe some places that are a little disadvantaged when it comes to the resources they're getting from the school. So I think, again, that trying to alleviate some of the areas where there's a lot of pressure, a lot of resources being spent would be a really good first step. And proving that in our current academic system would go a long way to making people feel trustful of a potential internet university type platform.
Yeah, I definitely agree that record management is a great potential use case for blockchain in current university systems. I can definitely see the Office of the Registrar adopting some type of technology for that. I think at least in the U.S., one of the main purposes of the universities is to lump together a pool of people with a lot of different talents and skills. And so I think if we move to online education, a lot of consideration would need to be taken into account for how do we get students to engage with each other? How do we still make meaningful connections? How can we still encourage collaboration? So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing I could really see online school being really doable for majors that may not have a standard accreditation. For example, engineering might be a little bit tougher since it's ABET accredited in the US, but maybe something like sociology or psychology may have looser major requirements that could be done easier online. So yeah, I'm really interested in what you mentioned, Tyler, and I really think we could see it moving forward.
Sure. Thank you for that, Gilberto. So just to reiterate, so the two main obstacles we're facing right now, in my opinion, is inter-school bureaucracy and just overall abidance to both national and local laws, including those set by the SEC. I think that's a huge part of it, and maybe a good first step toward that. And I do think that eventually we will reach that. It's only a matter of time by the way the technology is accelerating exponentially. I do think we'll reach that eventually, but for now we have to pass those two obstacles. My school, Illinois University, we took the first step in actually creating a sort of asset that our students can interact with called the Saluki coin. And when I was president, I went ahead and created it for the sole purpose of just engaging my members with the feasibility aspect of cryptocurrency, because essentially I gave it out as an incentive for coming to the meetings. And then the whole process of receiving it, you have to create a wallet, send the wallet to me, and then you get, your Saluki coins. And then from there, you could choose to either engage in the 10-to-1 Saluki coin or Raven coin trade with me, or two, save them for our swag shop. Um, so I thought that was a very interesting use case. I'm still working with our current management to sort of flush that out and make it as robust as we can over summer. But overall, I think what we need as a whole is a consortium of universities such as ourselves to work together for a common purpose. Um, whether that common purpose be, proliferation of blockchain technology, blockchain education, it all really falls under the same umbrella, and we've seen this sort of consortium take play in the private blockchain space, more so the permission blockchain space with blockchains like Corda, Hyperledger, and so forth. They've got some really big names, and what I've noticed is that companies sort of stick together, and that way, if one fails, they all fail. If one win, they all win. So I think that's the sort of mentality that we need to have going forward.
Yeah, to add on that, Lazar, that is definitely something that we at Miami University and across the Midwest have been kind of thinking about as we've been trying to set up and roll out the Midwest Blockchain Consortium. So that so far has been pretty successful. We have a bunch of different universities, I think, that are separately speaking at REIMAGINE. So definitely agree with everything you just highlighted.
Yeah, guys, it's really it really is truly inspiring to see day after day, just being in communication with all of you and, the rest of our MouseBelt University members all across the world. It really is truly inspiring to see what y'all are doing and kind of, sort of taking initiative and in a grassroots kind of way, getting your organizations off the ground and doing what you can to facilitate conversations around all of what's going on in this space, which, presumably, if there's anything that we share, it's probably the belief that it's really important what's happening here in this space, So I salute you all for doing your part. And I'm sure that y'all are all going to end up very successful professionals in this space, or even not in this space directly. You're just going to be successful in life. So keep it up, guys. Thank you so much for taking some time again to hop on this call with me and sort of chat about the state of, traditional education, blockchain education, and how blockchain technology might reshape the structure of that going forward. So as always, if you ever need anything, if y'all just want to chat, you can reach out to any of us anytime. Have a good rest of 2020, guys. Stay tuned to learn more about the state of the art in blockchain education and technological development all around the world. Reimagine 2020.